Migration and Development Trivandrum, Center for Migration Policy and Inclusive Governance NGO, and Institute for Multidisciplinary Programs in Social Sciences come together on the Story platform to discuss the multifaceted dynamics of internal migration in India. In the hours to come, we are to experience the pulse of the socio-economic, cultural, and legal challenges which arises from one of the burning issues of our times, movement of migrant laborers across Indian states. This conference will examine the socio-economic contributions of migrants to host states, challenges faced by migrant women, and the unique situation of reverse migration witnessed during COVID-19 pandemic. Our attitudes towards migration will be an important focus area. We will also explore the effectiveness of the current policy frameworks and legal protection for migrants, ensuring a deeper understanding of interstate migration experienced in India, proposing actionable solutions. Here commences the last session of presentation of thought-provoking research papers on the topic Exploring Migration Dynamics in India, Socio-Economic, Cultural and Identity Perspectives. On chair, we have Dr. Sadananda Sahu, who is a sociologist, presently working as an associate professor at the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. His research interests include diaspora and international migration and its socio-cultural and developmental impact. He has organized numerous national and international seminars and published research papers, books, and monographs in the area. He is also the program coordinator of the Master's Program in Migration and Diaspora at IGNOU, New Delhi. Dr. Sadananda Sahu, I invite you to this event.
So before we start, let's I'll give some introduction. Then so last one full day I have been listening, and there is a very positive understanding about migrants. You know, one thing I found we should have more nuanced understanding about migrants. Migrant can be not just positive always, they come with ideas, knowledge. They also come with their bias, xenophobic, thinking, everything. They are also human beings. Okay, we have seen the people, many. I work on diaspora in many countries. After British left, there five Indians are more exploited, very exploitative. South Africa, Uganda, many African countries. There are native people are very often towards India, Myanmar, many places. So let's have some nuanced understanding about migration and migrants. And this particular, session that how find across there are probably many beautiful, very interesting issues of socio-economic and cultural issues which are usually ignored. It requires more in-depth study, and I really congratulate all of you to cover so many interesting issues covering social cultural and scientific and knowledge. And now I request the past presentation to the crowd.
Dr. Sadananda Sahu, sir, I request you to be seated here. First, we have Monica Asawa, who is an undergraduate student at Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Her paper is titled In-Migrants or Out-Migrants, Who Are Better Off? Socio-Economic Analysis of In-Migrants and Out-Migrants in India. Medika, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nika Sava, and I'm a student from Berkeley Institute of Politics and Economics. I completed my internship at IIM Bangalore. Anyways, so I would like to start with my topic, which is in migrants or out migrants who are better off, a socio-economic analysis of Maharashtra. Uh, this was co-authored by Dr. Anurag Sava. Uh, Talking about the introduction, as we all know, migration plays an important part in human history, shaping societies and economies, by facilitating the movement of people across geographical locations to establish residences or to explore opportunities and engage with diverse cultures. Um, it reflects shifting of social, economic, and political circumstances, highlighting the disparities between the origin and the destination regions. In India, the migration is basically influenced by two factors, that is poverty and prosperity. With a vast and diverse population of India, it became a significant hub for internal migration. The state of Maharashtra exemplifies this trend by attracting a substantial number of migrants from underdeveloped regions due to its status of rapidly developing economic power. Therefore, this study analyzes migration patterns, focusing on income dynamics, living conditions, and socio-economic disparities. Talking about the literature review, as my topic is based on socio-economic analysis, I conducted my literature review based on those factors. This paper tells us about that social economic integration in any of the host regions leads to economic and cultural benefits. Uh, One of those socio-economic variables is the sector from and to the migrants come or go. So we can say that rural migrants often, when they come to urban sectors, they find employments in construction and garment industry, which is an informal sector. Therefore, this makes it difficult for them to earn larger wages, better wages, and integrate into the society. The another factor that influences migration is age, and the ability of the ability to earn is influenced by an individual's productivity, which is often correlated with age. India has a demographic advantage because the number of elderly people and the children are less compared to the working age population. Then comes the variable of that is education or skilled labor. So most of the times there is a large demand for talent in the due to in the so large amount of talent so that there is a national and regional economic development in the host regions. And the so skilled workers are often referred to as migrants with higher education. Uh, then I told that migration in India is influenced by two factors, that's prosperity and poverty and prosperity. So I got this line from this paper, which says that the motivations for migration range from escaping unemployment and poverty to seeking higher wages and better amenities. Uh, Coming to the last paper, the economic disparities in underdeveloped communities compare the laborers to seek employment elsewhere, which leads to loss of labor in the origin destination and influx of not that skilled migrants because as they belong to the underdeveloped regions, they are not as skilled as the ones who are already staying in the region, host regions. So this leads to influx of migrants and working voluntary unemployment. Yeah, so this was my review. So the need for study is to understand how well Maharashtra accommodates the migrants and what are the factors that driving out migration. So for that, I conducted a socio-economic analysis of migrants around migrants and assessed them on the basis of access to basic facilities. To see whether there is a potential brain drain or incentives for skilled and educated workers happening in Maharashtra, and to emphasize the changes in income due to migration and how does that impact the demographic and economic variables. So my research objectives are to study and compare the socio-economic and sanitation characteristics of migrants around migrants, to compare the migration status based on income change, and to compare same in migrants and out migrants based on their same socio-economic variables when the reason for migration is employment. So The data was collected from the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation website, that is mostly website. This was collected in the 78th NSS round and was named as Multiple Indicator Survey. The survey schedule used for collecting this data was 5.1. I extracted this data using Python and further analyzed it using StatIX. So methodology includes a bivariate analysis, a trivariate analysis, and a multinomial logistic regression model, which I explained. A bivariate analysis was conducted to evaluate the migration dynamics in Maharashtra in migrants and out migrants, and it was cross-tabulated with the socio-economic and housing related factors to understand who are better off in migrants and out migrants. Then, if to understand the economic impacts of migration, the variable change in migration after migration, the change in income after migration was used. This analysis compared teen migrants and out migrants, focusing on whether the income increased, decreased, or remained same post migration. Another table, as I said, another table was created to see what are the impacts of income changes when the reason for migration is employment. Then a multi-normal logistic regression model was run to examine the factors influencing the income changes post-migration. And the dependent variable was change in income categorized in increase, decrease, or unchanged, and the independent variables were the socio-economic ones. So now I come to my results. So this is a basic table which I just would like to show to you. Yeah. So the results are most of the natives and all the migrants belong to the age group 30 plus, indicating a working age population in Maharashtra. In migrants are predominantly belong to the urban areas. They're well educated and they engage in occupations like services and legislations and everything, which leads to high wages and which need high skills. So this just tells us that have in migrants have a better education and multiple skills compared to the out migrants. Talking about the quantiles, in migrants belong to the richest category and out migrants belong to the poorest category, which again shows the disparity between them. Talking about the social groups, OBCs and scheduled class are the categories, and when as in OBCs and scheduled class people migrate migration and migrate forward. Scheduled class so within the migration, whereas the other category is more dominated in the other than the scheduled category is more dominated in migration. Talking about the as I said, living conditions and basic facilities. So in migrants, the natives have better access to the housing facilities and sanitation or drinking facilities. Whereas access to that. So which again shows that our world of standing. Then while I was conducting the research, I came across this graph. Came across the result that there is an increase in income, but you can see the difference between in migrants and out migrants, how much they prefer by the increase in income. So therefore, in order to delve deeper into the variations, further analysis of income changes among in migrants and out migrants based on socio-economic characteristics was done. So this is the table for the income changes based on out migrants and in migrants, which include increase, decrease, and same as before for both. And we can see the other socio-economic variables. So the results were basically that out migrants face income decreases, especially the rural migrants who are with lower education levels, which belong to the poorest households. And yeah, uh, yeah, and the out migrants. So we can see that out migrants are basically involved in agricultural elementary occupations, and their income is stagnant or it declines. We cannot see an increase in income for the agricultural occupation. And whereas in migrants predominantly experience an income increase, especially in urban areas, among better educated individuals, and they show upward economic ability as they see increase in income at all the levels, on all education levels, and in whatever occupation they are engaged in. Um, yeah. So during this analysis, I made a graph where I showed the reasons for migration. These are the reasons for migration in migrants and out migrants. And we can see that for employment, so like other reasons are bit fine, but in order to understand the employment impacts of migration and how does that help in migrants and out migrants, or it wasn't of their anyway, yeah. So it also it's a source. So this includes identifying the education and occupational levels at which in order to understand the occupational and education levels at which in migrants and out migrants experience income increases, I conducted further analysis. So this is the table where employment is the main reason for migration and change in income among in migrants and out migrants and the comparison between them. So yeah. So mostly in migrants, outperform out migrants in economic outcomes, benefiting more from the migration opportunities. Urban migration, smaller households, and belonging to richer quantiles and having better education leads to increase in income for the in migrants. Whereas out migrants face more economic challenges, especially in rural areas, larger households, and certain vulnerable groups. We can even see the gender disparities between with males generally faring better economy. This is the multinomial logic regression model which I ran with change in income being the dependent variable and other socioeconomic variables being the independent variable. So my result was that so in migrants are like 8.863 times more likely, while our migrants are just 2.82 times more likely than natives to experience an increase in following the migration. And for degrees in income, we can see that in migrants are 3.63 times more likely, while out migrants are 15.67 times more likely to experience a decrease in income compared to the natives. And the base outcome was same as before was considered as the base outcome, and natives were considered as the base gap. Yeah, so basically higher education, smaller households and skilled occupations positively influence income increases. And for income decrease, the results were not significant, so I cannot tell that, give a conclusion for that. So Maharashtra attracts a significant influx of migrants, especially to the urban areas, because migrants are predominantly male, they are better educated and economically better off. They're employed in high skilled and high paying sectors, which leads to positive outcomes for in migrants economically. Whereas out migrants mostly came from rural and economically disadvantaged areas. So we can see that drivers of out migration are stagnant agricultural growth, diminished access to the basic facilities, and necessary driven movement to escape the adverse conditions. Therefore, the government of Maharashtra should make such recommendations which would decrease the factors driving the out migration. It should prioritize rural development programs and reduce the push factors. Investment in agricultural modernization should be done. Rural industries should be made, and infrastructure should be done. Right. Yes. Thank you.
We are taking the questions after each presentation. So if anyone in the audience is having any queries, please ask.
Yeah, thank you. I just have two small queries in terms of large household and small household.
Yeah. So
So that's the question of how do you kind of presume the nature of the household? That's one. Second is you have too many factors there when you talk about religion, education, groups, everything. And yet the output seems to be only suggesting the bearing on income, right? So I'm just curious about the causality that you have established because this is a good work. And there are other works that has been done also in relation to autonomous migration. and its impact on women, right?
Yeah.
So single women autonomous migration has been also there. So perhaps look into all of this, and causality is interesting, but unfortunately not earth-shattering, because obviously, freedom of migration is very much there, but it would be interesting to bring in another dimension, because you have too many factors in, which is something I understand from beginning work, but it's a good work that can go to another level. So perhaps draw onto that, which will contribute to the existing body of literature of migration. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
We'll now hear from our chair, Dr. Sudhakar.
Yes. I think the paper is very good. I have two observations from the philosophical aspect and also concept. So this entire, you have got secondary sources. In fact, whenever you take secondary sources, they all sometimes failure to work on the foundation. So how to assess that it is true or false? Because 10 years, old is very long. Migration 10 years is so many cycles in global. Okay. That is what and sample size, geographical area. You have not taken the entire Maharashtra. You have taken.
I have mentioned everything in the paper.
Oh, okay. No problem. So those clarity should have been there. And especially when you do socio-cultural studies, India, especially in India, I think caste component is not getting it. Caste component. So that is very, it can capture many things. I, I think, uh, especially in this kind of study, people do next year study. So that, they can verify whether secondary guidelines, some kinds of case studies, some kinds of, interviews, just to make sure this. How to capture a family experience. In secondary data will not capture very micro things. Right? You have to have a governance also. So this is my observation.
So to answer Ma'am's question about the household size, so I mean the calculations which I made. So the smaller households consisted of one, two, and three household members, and larger households were six plus. So they were like, with the help of normal distribution, I like with the help of I made a graph, and with the help of that, I recognized what categories should I divide the household members in. And so you know, yeah. So about about the case studies and everything, I did this in my undergraduate thesis, and I have just completed my undergraduate. Yeah, so I haven't, and the data which I used was published in 2021. So I mean, it's not that it is old, but it's not that old. So according after census, the migration data available was in the 70th census round, which was published in 2021. Thank you.
Next, we have Surabhi Garg, who is a PhD scholar at the University of Kerala, Trivandrum. The paper is titled Adapting to Change, Social-Cultural Values and Strategies of Migrant Women Workers in Kerala. Surabhi, please. Before we begin, I would like to list out a few general instructions. Each scholar can take up to 12 minutes maximum, and the 8th, 10th, and 12th minutes of the presentation will be signaled with a single bell, a double bell, and a long bell, respectively. All the scholars are requested to abide by the instructions on time management to ensure a fair space for others to follow. And we'll be taking questions after each session. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. I'm Silpi Ghai. I'm from Department of Sociology, Ministry of Kerala. So the title of the paper that I'm going to present today is Adapting to Change, Sociocultural Barriers and Strategies of Migrant Women Workers in Kerala. And the co-author is Professor Dr. Sandhya R.S. So coming to the introduction part, the paper, the concise in scope, touches upon a crucial thought. It is crucial in the sense that the by main migrants are often visible in public spaces, gathering in groups and at job sites and even in junctions of the corners of the society. Female migrants remain largely unseen and are invisible in the discourse of migration. And their experiences are less documented, and there is distinct lack of literature on the gendered aspects of migration, especially here in Kerala. So we know that these women migrants exist. We encounter them in salons, cafes, hotels, and restaurants, but they often go unnoticed or unacknowledged in the public sphere. So the invisibility is not a good because it highlights how their struggles and strategies for adopting in life in Kerala can go overlooked. So this small studies is to bring some of their experiences to light, focusing on key challenges such as language barriers, food-related issues, and the resilience these women display in overcoming them. So I would like to emphasize that this is a preliminary study, and my presentation is only a brief glimpse into a much larger topic that I'm currently doing my PhD. So yeah, the objective part. So the primary aim is to highlight the gender aspects of migration, and the paper is to explore the social cultural barriers faced by these migrant women. And methodology, it's a qualitative study. And I have conducted interviews, it's semi-structured interviews. And I have collected data from 8 migrant women workers that is working in salons, cafes, and restaurants. And they are mainly from West Bengal, Manipur, Sikkim, and Odisha. Okay, and I have collected them from 3 districts of Kerala, that is Ernakulam, Trivandrum, and Kozhikode. And I have identified 3 key barriers. The first one is language difficulty and food related struggles, and the last one is social integration challenges. So, coming to the language barriers and how they navigate the communication challenges. So, the language emerged as a most significant barrier to women in the study. Like the lack of proficiency in Malayalam often created misunderstandings with the customers and colleagues. For communication is crucial, especially in salons and restaurants and cafes. And all of them reported that their inability to converse fluently hindered their job performance as well. And outside of work, this language barrier extended to interactions with the locals as well. So the respondents noted that when they encountered problems such as navigating local transportation or finding rental accommodations, the lack of common language made it harder for them to seek help. And despite these challenges, they have taken steps to learn basic Malayalam. They have used mobile apps and translation apps and all. And also they learn from co-workers and their customers as well. So I have also given some narrations as well for you to read. So coming to the social integration, sorry, food and dietary adaptation. So another important theme that emerged from the interviews was the difficulty to adjust to the Kerala cuisine. So the Northeast cuisine is characterized by its reliance on rice, fermented foods, and unique kind of spices and meats, which differ from the typical meals provided for them in the hostels and PGs. So, and although majority of them are under the recruiters, and the accommodation is provided for the recruiters. So the food is provided along with their accommodation. So some mentioned that over time they have developed a taste for certain Kerala dishes like appam, putta and all. But this adaptation was typically out of necessity rather than preference. And the last barrier was the social integration and cultural differences that these respondents shared that they felt a sense of otherness in their daily interactions with the local natives or Keralites, that they feel their physical appearance and language set them apart from others. They feel different and are occasionally treated as outsiders by Keralites. And despite these challenges, many of the respondents expressed desire to better understand the culture by taking part in festivals and cultural activities, especially Onam and Vishu. So, to conclude, the study highlights the challenges faced by Northeast migrant women in Kerala. Despite their significant contributions to the local economy, these women often remain marginalized and invisible. So, their experiences provide important insight into the gendered aspects of migration in Kerala, an area that is often overlooked in discussions about migration. So, that's all. Sir. Thank you.
Do we have questions from the audience?
In fact, 2, 3 questions. One is the sample size. Only 8
Yes.
women. I go general analysis. This is one question. Second thing is when migration happens, the adaptation also varies. In terms of the duration of stay. Duration of stay. Some migrants staying here for 50 years, some are just coming last year. How to differentiate them? And also location, like for urban area, they have better, you know, understanding many speaking English and all. Rural areas, they have most of them. Okay, those kind of things you have to make sure that. And my last question is, this food challenge will be same for male and female. Yes. What is gender in that? You have to identify certain specific gender aspect. Otherwise, your analysis I saw, it can be for it can be applied in their languages and food and all this. What is gender in that?
Yes, sir. But there is a difference, like I said, these female migrants are mainly under the control of the recruiters or the employers. So they are given accommodation along with the food, that is food provided by the government. In fact, these male migrants, they have access, like they have access to resources that they can cook themselves. So there is a difference between them.
See, all of this are not same. Somebody working in hotel is different, somebody has law is different. So they will have different challenges. So how to relate with this those services?
Okay, I haven't looked upon that aspect because the primary aim was to highlight the gender thing. Because there are no studies, like there are less than 5 studies on women migration in Kerala. So I wanted to highlight that part. So I gave more importance to that.
Okay, okay. Let me appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Surabhi. Next, we have Tanya Banerjee, who is a research associate at Center for Environment Relations and Labor Studies, IIM Kozhikode. Her paper is titled A Passage to the City, Lives and Work of Internal Migrants in India. Tanya, please.
Uh, so very good morning to everyone present here and our respected chair and to Professor Jogi. And so I am Tanya Banerjee. I'll be presenting my MPhil work. Now this is something that I started in 2019 and due to the pandemic I could not do the field work, so it's primarily based on the secondary literature. And I'll be representing the Center for Employment Relations and Labor Studies, IIM. So a passage to the city regarding the life and work. I do understand that we have had conversations yesterday where we are talking about the employment, the reasons, what are the consequences. But I think we need to associate and situate the migrants in a city and how the triumvirate of the migrant city and citizenship is actually changing the dynamics at all the three levels. So when we try to understand migrant, we need to understand that this space which is called a city is often showing up opportunities, challenges, and dilemmas. So here the migrants are, considered as the economic objects, but not as political subjects. So primarily the research question which I would be dealing with is that how does, a migrant coming from the various states, in particularly in Bangalore or Delhi or Calcutta or Mumbai, mostly the metropolitans, is navigating the spatial temporal trajectories of the city and how is he or she trying to make a political identity and recognition in the city? And in that context, what is and how is the cultural capital accentuating or rather exacerbating the entire identity formation or the presence? So therefore, there are few works such as Saskia Sasen's work called as the global city and also the city between demographic representation and spatialized power projects, where she's talking that it is mostly the non-formal political actors who are, experiencing the everyday lives through the demonstration, the festivals, or the workplaces, which sort of makes a city restructure itself. And at the same time, we see that there are new forms of power and politics by these migrants at the very subnational level, where there can be and they are subjected to some form of disadvantage, but still there is, even if there is lack of resistance, they do make their political presence very much pronounced. At the same time, a lot of my central work has been based on Ranavi Samdar's work and also the other work by the Alvida Research Group, where a primary focus on the city's rural migrants and the urban poor, migration and the urban question in Kolkata, Mumbai, and Delhi, which has been primarily done by Montro and Amit Prakash. So they are categorically talking about the homeless migrants or the security guards who are working from different, they are coming from the different tier two cities. So it has been often said and arguing that there is a constant sense of the urban governmentality and the urban governance in uh, situating these migrants, whereas they have very little electoral presence, but also they have been how they have been ghettoized and also how they are situated and navigated at different places and designated or relegated a particular space in a city. So therefore, I see that city is a site of agency as well as a subjection. So Deshinder and Akhtar, they are saying that, yesterday we had a presentation on the push and pull theory, but they are arguing that, the pull factor is not so strong as the push factor. Because the push factor, where we see that there's a lot of expulsion of labor from the traditional sector, when you see the agrarian sector, and also in the cities, we see that what are the challenges these migrants are facing, such as these, migrant laborers. They are often we see that there is a lot of degree of unfreedom, there are longer working hours, and a lot of commission by the middlemen, and also the piece rate wages and the wage theft, which the other presenters were also talking about yesterday. So in this sense, we see that the migrant work is even the kind of informal economy in which they are, employed in. It is a sense and it is more of a precarious work. So when we talk about the precarity or the precarious work by Arnold Bongiorgi and Stanley, they have conceptualized the idea of precariousness, and they say that there are various vulnerabilities in the labor market, such as the age, education, occupation, which my previous presenter also enlightened us with. So therefore, I see that they are arguing that we need to understand that even if there is lack of assertion, but still these migrants, these internal migrants, are asserting themselves as new political subjects when they are entering an informal economy. So therefore, when we see the city and the informal economy, we understand that there is a famous, because most of these migrants are the footloose labor. Okay, and they are, as Professor Sahu was also mentioning yesterday, they are employed in either the circular migration, the seasonal migration. Okay, so they are, along with the women and children, they are all the footloose labor, and their voices do remain unheard and unnoticed. So therefore, this informal sector is acting as a stepping stone or even just a transit. So Professor Rajan was saying that now he's actually thinking about a theory which is migration in transition. So this transit, this rural to urban transit, and also what we think of the city, because right now city is not a fixed term, because you have the rural, the urban fringe, or the edge city. So there are people who are, morning they're coming from these edge cities, doing the work and going back to that particular, again, the urban edge or the peri-urban spaces that we talk about. So the housing and the employment is again in a continuum. It is not something which is situated in a fixed position or it has fixed categories. So therefore, we see that this claim making or the nature of transaction in terms of the political assertion, in terms of social solidarity, they are constituted by these urban poor, and it has been exploited at the workplace destinations and also where they are primarily living. So the space, therefore, I argue that these migrants are very much pivotal in constructing the city, in constructing the space, be it when you talk about Kerala or the other states as well, where mostly on Maharashtra for that matter, which draw a lot of migrants from other cities. Now, as far as challenges are concerned, because also as we see that the conference is themed as challenges and opportunities. So challenges, when we see that they have, that inaccessibility of trade unions and the platforms for collective bargaining. They also have lack of voting rights, exclusion from the social cultural aspects of the city, and also very loose social networks which have been done by work by Bhagat and Desai and Sandhi. And they also have a lot of, without identity or without official count. And also a lot of them do not want to be enumerated into the entire security data. So that exclusion and inclusion is a part of their everyday life which we see. Apart from that, this lack of enumeration or the absence of utilization, it is often seen that this
circularity and the multilocality of migrants often keep them outside the political voice in a city. And therefore, we see that they are often marginalized, not in just in terms of their identity, but marginalized also in terms of the space, also in terms of geography. So therefore, I see that when you have so many challenges, still how these migrants are, making a space for themselves in the city, and that is through reconstructing and recognition of the migrant identities. So the question is that why does the city become indispensable part of migrant lives, and what is the role of city in structuring or reconfiguring the social interactions which they are having? So Bourdieu is arguing that this very act of migration is often, it is disrupting the linear production of the social labor, and therefore it is constructing a new form of habitus. So individual and the collective agency, they are very much important in creating new cultural resources in migration and transforming the cultural practices. So, in order to understand that how this cultural capital is actually producing their own particular cultural dimension, we have to understand the cultural practices and how the city, the government is also, kind of seeing that how these particular migrant groups are creating an important site for validating the cultural capital and co-constructing institutions. So in a lot of cities, in a lot of states, you will now see that, as I was talking about yesterday, that how there are certain provisions which are made for migrants, not in terms of which are politically motivated, but then again, they are somehow erased after the elections are over. But during the campaigns, the songs which are made for them so that they can attract these political migrants. Also, the kind of representative leader, which is being done. And interestingly, this cultural capital, now you see that post 2014, there has been a sacralization in most of these northern belts, okay, which has been happening. And even though they're sort of in the Maharashtra or the north and even in south, with these people coming in, there is a proper erasure of the entire regional identity which is going, because then it is again becoming the entire focus on a particular pan national party. So therefore, I see that another scholar who's talking about this in terms of citizenship. He's Lefebvre is talking about the contract of citizenship, where he's saying that these migrants need to talk about different sort of rights. So migrants cannot be claiming the same sort of rights, because, as he said, that there has to be this strategic essentialism where you are talking about your own particular rights in a very different way. So his idea of rights is saying that there has to be new rights and there has to be new space, and that street, the labor job, the mazdoor does in the morning, they become very much pivotal in understanding the local emerging politics of these movements. So therefore, I would say that migrants are very important in making the everyday life of a city and also making the ordinary cities, and that everyday resistance is very important. That everyday resistance in their everyday life is what makes the migrant urbanism a very important topic that we should now be talking about in the contemporary times. So therefore, as I say, so I feel that instead of saying, that city has infrastructure, we say that there are physical infrastructure in making the city. I don't feel it's the physical infrastructure. I think it's the people who are the infrastructure. People should be catered to as so important, and the city has to be understood in relativity with the migrants, because I feel that even at home, the workplace, the job, the water collection, sanitation, everywhere you will see that these migrants are coming with their identity. So once they thought that, okay, there was so much a caste and class consciousness back in my rural areas, now I go to the new city and it's every then it will be withdrawn or erased. But that is not so. In the new space also, these new identities are being created along with the social cleavages in the lines of the caste and class. Apart from that, you see that these migrants, even when they come in the new city, when they go back, they are wearing the same sort of suit and saris and everything to show that yes, we are all fine to wear the migrant. They will not kind of tell you then what they're actually going through. So in that sense, they are in a continuum of the identity in the rural space and the urban space as well. And therefore, I feel that the migrants themselves reshape the city, they make the city and the city life, and they contribute to the wider social change. Are my references?
study because political rights? Because that's sometimes seen as the ultimate rights for migrants. Political rights, like voting rights, such things. I'm just studying those things, those aspects, and what differences do you see from region to region? So, thank you. I'm just curious if you had explored the possibility of um, access to the city. What you're doing is you are juxtaposing the migrant on the city and you're presuming that there's a continuum there. But some would argue that migrants have unequal access to the city that they are needing, right? And we have obviously looked into a lot of literature, CRG and all of other literature. So, and you're talking about speciality also, if I'm not mistaken a bit. Maybe you can extend this later, but somewhere city and the migrant obviously has a linear relation. But this linearity gets challenged because city that they are in the process of making denies them entry and access, be it water, be it resources. So often you see them under the flyover, right? So this resource question is something that I would like you to kind of probe to understand that how unequal is that mechanism and whether indeed city is where, and again, another aspect that you brought up, which I found quite interesting, was infrastructure, logistics, basically. So again, these are things that you can develop later for. Thank you.
We have to do observation. And hearing. And welcome, Delhi. So, my one question, may I explain that from migrant constructing the space? So, I want little elaboration on that. Because you are making migrants as empowering community. Okay. Second thing is, in the agency also, political agency and all, if you compare Delhi and Mumbai, you see, mainly we have communities, at least 20 MLAs you find in any particular party, one of the MPs you find, so many, political cloud and social cloud is there. Same with Bengali, in Delhi, they have the clean market, they have so many things. Okay? Mumbai, they will not have that much. So how do you differentiate this two city? And thirdly, within the migrant community, you see, in Delhi especially, you have the elite Bengali community who are in Share Park and many places, and they have their own agency. You have a very proletariat kind of Bengali who are in Gopinpuri and others, and they are facing lots of problems. So how to differentiate within migrant community? Because I think those practical things you have not discussed. Okay.
Thank you for the questions. I'm really related that I've always wonderful questions from such three eminent personalities. So as far as a question you, sir. So as far as political rights are concerned, now these are mostly I wish, as I said, I intend to do a field work and I specify my study and focus my study. And that is what I intend to do in my PhD work. So as far as it is picturized and how I've worked at it right now, is I do see that there is a lack of access to lab and your question that there's lack of access to not just political resources but also social resources and the civil resources as well in terms of it. So these rights, often, as I said, that Lefebvre is also talking about new form of right. So that those political rights also have to be enamored and achieved in a new form of way, which the migrants are trying to do, but also they are failing at a lot of times because it is just sort of daily stop or a peaceful bargaining. So that entire negotiation and the bargaining skills in terms of resources and the political rights are often, from probably they also accentuate their identity, but also kind of, limit them and restrict them in forming the identity and making a space for themselves. That is very true. As far as Professor Sahu's remarks are concerned, so I believe that, as I said, that in terms of class, Because this is the question which also I had that when I'm seeing migrants in terms of the needs or in terms of the past and class, I think each will have a specific problems and issues and challenges that they are facing. So in this context, I really wanted to put my idea was that how these migrant workers were actually in a particular city and how the different while I was thinking about how these political parties are actually trying to consider them only in terms of the election period, even in terms of how they get represented and how just they are as mere voters and not as mere or not as citizens. So that is a major place. So therefore, I believe that in order to has to be state specific, I will consider that in my PhD and incorporate all the feedback. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. Next, we have Godwin Ahmed and Alicia Zanet, who are students of Loyola Institute of Business Administration. The paper is titled Navigating Social Cultural Dynamics of Migration, Social Integration and Cohesion of Northeastern Families in Chennai. Godwin and Alicia, please.
A very pleasant morning to everyone gathered here. I'm Vincia Janet, and he is Gordon. We are postgraduate students from sociology background, and we are currently pursuing our HRM in Loyola Institute of Business Administration, Chennai. So our paper is titled as Navigating Social Cultural Dynamics, Social Integration, and Social Cohesion of Northeastern Families in Chennai. Talking about migration, it is not just the geographical relocation of people from one place to another, but it can be said as a journey of transformation and change. Migrants in their host society encounters differences in their social, economical, cultural, and geopolitical spaces which are much different from their home state. By delving into the socio-cultural dynamics of migration, we could better understand about the social integration and cohesion of migrants in the host society. So, interstate migration, there are various factors pertaining to it. But one of the major contributing factors is the unequal distribution of development among the regions. So, in India, uh, the people from relatively underdeveloped areas of UP, Bihar, Odisha, northeastern states migrate towards the metropolitan hubs in Chennai, Hyderabad, Kerala, and Karnataka, etc. In search of better opportunities and better living standards in the host society. Focusing on the northeastern migrants, research says that about 20% of them move along with their household, which is higher than the national average. So, when migrants move with their households or families, the challenges and their experience would be unique and different from the individual migrants. So, our research focuses on the lived experiences of Northeastern migrant families who are settled in Chennai. So, our research questions are first one is uh, what are the social, economic, and cultural factors that are influencing the migration of Northeastern Indian families to Chennai? To precisely say, it is about the push and pull factors. And then the second one is about the perceptions on about this Chennai city, whether it is inclusive, it is integrated, etc. And then the third question is about the challenges they face in their duration of adaptation to the city. Our research objectives are coherent in answering the research questions. Review of literature. So, northeastern region is primarily dependent on agriculture, and despite of the globalization, they are still facing economic struggles, less job opportunities, and poor infrastructure and ethnical clashes. So these are the major push factors for the outmigration of northeastern families. And then, in a study conducted on 2014, it is said that about 3.5 million members belonging to Northeastern tribes have migrated to other regions in search of unorganized jobs leaving their native occupation, that is agriculture. Then, talking about the women migration with regard to Northeast, research says that they are mostly the accompanied migrants to their households or their male companions. And then finally, predominant researchers says that it is because of their unique physical features and cultural features that are different from the other states. They are facing challenges in sort of discrimination and stereotypes in their host society. So theoretical framework, these are from the sociology background. And first one is social cohesion by Emile Durkheim. Social cohesion is the sense of belonging or the recognition you get in the host society. He says that in modern societies, the social cohesion emerges from the interdependence of division of labor. If we look into it from the migrants' perspective, that is interdependence between the migrants as well as the host society. But whether the migrants or migrants' works are acknowledged or they are given mutual respect in their host society is a question to be discussed. And then second one is the concept of alienation by Karl Marx. As he says, in the capitalistic society, workers are alienated from their work, from their fellow beings, from themselves, and from their products. Similarly, the migrant workers are contributing towards the economic growth of the host society. But whether they are feeling themselves as a part of the society or still they are feeling excluded or marginalized due to the stereotypes and discrimination is a matter of discussion. And then finally, theory of assimilation by Parr and Burgess. They says that assimilation is the interpenetration of the migrants into the society that emerges from the sensations, their emotions, their experiences they encounter as individual or group in the host society. Uh, as the negative contributions of assimilations identified by Park and Burgess are oppression, social injustice, and unequal power relations. Next is research methodology. Ours is a qualitative research. The data were collected from the field by one-on-one semi-structured interview with the help of interview guide. And then our sampling technique is a non-probability sampling, purposive sampling. The criteria for the selection of samples are minimum of 6 months residency in Chennai as family, and then their willingness to share their experiences to us. And the sample size is 11 non-resident families. We have got samples from different backgrounds in terms of their origin state, their socioeconomic status. Uh, and then the method of data analysis is thematic analysis. So by reading through the interview transcripts, we came up with the initial goals and then classified them into categories and came up with the broader themes. The key themes identified are motivations of migration, challenges in host society, cultural preservation and adaptation, experiences of social integration to cohesion, community support, and perceptions of genocide. Further discussion will be continued by God.
I'll go through the analysis part through the perspectives of the respondents who responded in their own words. So the motivations of migration are the push and pull factors. So in push factor, there is poverty, lack of opportunity, and low wages. So one of our respondents told that Chennai has good to us providing a stable income and better infrastructure compared to our hometowns. So another respondent he said that we had two kiosks in Ananaga, one managed by a and another managed by an employer. So these are the pull factors. And the push factors were back in Assam, one person responded that back in Assam we were involved in agriculture, but the income wasn't enough to sustain us, so we decided to move here for better opportunities. So the challenges faced by the migrants. So there are linguistic barriers, food and climate barrier, discrimination, and inadequate of legal support. So in this linguistic barrier, they have a sense of isolation. Uh, to tell this, I quote respondents are given, I face mistreatment and language barriers because I don't know Tamil. My co-workers and employees used to say awful things in Tamil that I didn't understand. So then the food perspective, like most of the people we interviewed were prefer to have their own cuisine. So one of the respondents was that we prefer cooking our native Manipuri dishes because we don't enjoy Tamil foods. So another respondent responded in a way that to be honest, we stick to Naga cuisine. There is no compromise in food for me, said with a laugh. And the discrimination are the facing labeling, restriction to cook certain native foods, and denial of housing. In terms of labeling, uh, the respondent quoted that when I first worked as a cleaner in a saloon, my employer withheld my salary. Sorry. Uh, we face racial discrimination like being called derogatory names as Chinkies by drunken locals. And in terms of this denial of housing, one person responded in a way that uh, like because they eat different kinds of dishes like pork and meat, they are consistently denied housing. And another respondent also told that from Naga community that they used to cook the bamboo shoots because it creates a different type of order which these community doesn't like, so they are not able to cook those foods particularly in their households. And this lack of legal support with like the respondent noted that when I first worked as a cleaner in my salon, my employer fixed my salary and made excuses. Even I went to police for help. They didn't take my complaint seriously and I felt helpless. So cultural preservation and adaptation, like they usually cook their native foods at home and celebrating their festivals in their community groups. This was a picture took when I went for an Indian collection where they have the churches, they organize their masses, and these community groups they celebrate their festivals. And in terms of adaptation, celebration of local festivals, the certain people live in a kind of a clustered area where Diwali is very common. Everybody bursts crackers, so they also burst crackers and they celebrate. And they try to learn Tamil too. And social integration and social cohesion. So, um, in terms of this, they usually create friendship with Tamil people, visit local temples, support from locals also they should get. Support from locals, one of the Naga person quoted that they run a restaurant called Naga Riju, where there are a lot of Tamil people who go and eat there and give the feedbacks and they always help them to grow better. And the community support, they have Ethnic Association and Northeast India Welfare Association of Chennai. So these associations helps them to get in legal matters. So they have a sense of peace, feeling, and institutional assistance. And perceptions of city, most of the responses we get were accommodative, welcoming, safe comfort to other places, wide education, and business opportunities. Then this is an important part we observe. Differences observed in the experiences of economically affluent migrant families and economically poor migrant families. In terms of labor exploitation, workers in the informal sector often endure low pay and harsh working conditions. Conversely, those employed in formal sector enjoy protection through regular salaries and additional perks. Regarding housing, workers in informal sector typically live in affordable areas, segregated neighborhoods such as Aminchikari, those kind of areas. In contrast, northeastern affluent families with greater financial resources have the flexibility to choose house in various locations and monetary benefits. And regarding this discrimination part also, the affluent families have certain, they doesn't face more amount of prejudice in urban environment. But in contrast, low income migrant household encounter various forms of discrimination. And so next, our suggestion is that legal assistance and redressal mechanism, setting up dedicated migrant legal assistance centers, providing training on police regarding migrant sensitivity, community integration by creating awareness and establishing labor assistance helplines. So the only thing which they lack is that legal protection. Majority of the people encounter this, and when they go to public space also, they also face the spatial discrimination too. Thank you.
Do we have questions from the audience?
So as you all know that Chennai is this is a city which is prone to flood and other natural calamities. So, what are the measures taken by the government pertaining to the welfare and safety of these migrants?
I have three questions. One is general to all the leaders. In fact, when you make the work literature, I think there is very big purpose. You know, not generalizing somebody negatively, but also identify some gaps. And then you can present it. That aspect keep in mind. Second, I think about sample size. There are 8 Northeast countries. Okay, you have 11 families. How representative it is. Okay, and third is you have seen the Northeast countries. They are not monolithic. There are conflict between Kupis and Mansi. The Assam is banning wheat, which other Northeast countries. So there are, lots of cultural difference, political difference, ethnic difference. You have used the term like Andhra term Northeast. In Delhi, I stayed, there are conflicts. Multi protesting, Turkish protesting, and all this. Here also it will be like that, you know, because back home it will have impact anywhere. Okay, so how do you think this storm will encompass impact and all these ethnic groups? Maybe 100 plus ethnic groups in the entire Northeast.
So,
Before answering, we have one more question. Okay, okay, let's we can start answering.
okay, come to your question. As I said that there are like two categories of migrants. One is economically affluent and one is economically very poor. These kind of laborers live in ghettos. That place is called Aminchikarai, where like if a migrant is coming from northeast, like immediately to Chennai, they used to go to that particular place called Aminchikarai because they get a low land and their community people, everybody will live there. So they easily get a space over there. And another kind of migrants who are affluent, who have economically good well-being, they live in good apartments. And the response we spoke, some of them are scientists, one of them was scientist, and one person is working in IOB. These people get a good accommodation and space. So in terms of flood and all, it is going to be mostly affected this labor area, where the government will provide a minimal assistance what they are providing to the normal people. Because in those areas also there will be normal people living, so they'll be getting basic kind of food and assistance. I doesn't know much into it, but these things will be. And so to your question, sample size is yes, it is limited, but we also had a limited time, so it's very limited that what.
So, from the Northeast, we got responses from 6 different states, like from Mizoram, from Nagaland, and then from Meghalaya, and then Assam, and then one from Arunachal Pradesh. So we covered, as possible, we covered the diverse.
In terms of indifference, as you said, sir, one person reported that we asked the question that every responding person you want to go back to your state. So one person responded that which I didn't want to because if he go back to his home state, he has to face this many clashes and thieves from Manipur. And one thing I can identify is that in the state sector also they have a different search services. So from inside this was also. So they have these segregations here too, but we doesn't get the so,
Thank you, Gordon and Vincia. Now we are going to the last presentation for the day. Um, we have the Hariram SS, who is a field worker in our project to School of International Relations and Politics, Mahatma Gandhi University. His paper is titled Connecting Cultures, Examining the Socio-Cultural Integration of Interstate Migrant Workers in Kerala. Hariram, please.
Good morning, sir. Hello. Myself, Hagar myself. So, my paper is like it focuses on the social cultural integration and healthier access for industry migrants workers in Kerala. So, my research objectives are like to examine social cultural integration and well-being of industry migrant workers in Kerala. Then to investigate the impacts of language barriers, cultural differences, housing insecurity, and exploitative labor practices. Then again, to assess the effectiveness of state initiatives in addressing these challenges. So just give a context to migration, even though for past 2 days we have been talking about this. So like in Kerala, it's like the official estimate is around 25 million or 25 lakhs of migrant workers. So if we put it in the context, the population of Kerala is like 3.5 million. So it will be around 40% of the population. Again, the drivers are like high wages, then employment opportunities and demographic transitions. Challenges include exploitation, substandard housing, and social exclusion. So my key research questions are, say like how do social cultural challenges affect industrial migrants' health and well-being? Again, to what extent are state initiatives effective in promoting social inclusion? So what the control center was a very pure qualitative with thematic analysis. So as my part of my job, so I used to go to different districts in Kerala and used to collect data. So for that I maybe conducted more than 500 study sector interviews and any number of focus group discussions. The sampling I took was snowball technique with covering diverse sectors like construction, estate workers. Again, analysis I did identification of again teams and tanks. So my key findings are like housing insecurity. Mostly migrant workers live is all covered with poor sanitation and hazardous living conditions, like mainly made of tarpaulins and tin shoes. There is like widespread labor exploitation in the form of like long hours of work, very low wages, wage inequality, and occupational risk. The healthcare barriers are like limited access to healthcare with language, then awareness and systematic gaps like the government the hospitals won't be working after work, like their working hours. Again, social exclusion. So like there are a lot of cases of isolation driven by stereotypes and cultural difference. So these are the main five state initiatives. First one is the Awas Health Insurance Scheme. So this scheme was intended to provide health coverage and accident benefits to registered migrant workers. Second one is Kerala Migrant Workers Welfare Scheme. So it does also benefit for the registered migrant workers. Then the Apna Housing Scheme, which offers affordable and hygienic and secure means accommodation for 1,000 rupees per month. Then there is Sangali Literacy Program, which is aimed to equip micro workers with basic literacy skills in Indian manner. Then there is Project Roshni, which is to promote social inclusion and education opportunities for children of micro workers. Then these are the limitations of state initiatives. So like in our centuries, I feel like for every initiative government, first thing is limited awareness and accessibility. Then for the scale of migrant workers welfare scheme, it has to be registered. So like every year you have to give 30 rupees and again do it. So due to lack of follow up, like migrant workers don't register for it. Again, Apnagar housing scheme, select it is already one operation in two districts of Kerala. So it only houses around like 800 people. So that's one limitation. And then the standard literacy program, like it is like low participation because migrant workers don't prefer to learn. After hectic work, they don't prefer to learn or study anything after that. And again, like it's very hard for to find men tutors to teach like main industry migrant workers. So mostly tutors are females. So that is because the percentage of female workers in Kerala is also very low. So that's one of the uh, limitation of this project. Then project also is also like limited geographic scope and impact because it only works in one or two districts in Kerala. So my recommendation would be to strengthen the awareness campaign in native languages. They expand the geographical reach of programs like Apna and Mostly. Then ensure robust monitoring and better coordination among stakeholders. Foster unionization. Say, now, students like AATC have started integrating industry micro workers into their cadre. So I said we should encourage more on that. Then, as concluded, industrial microworkers are very crucial to Kerala's economy, but they do face severe vulnerabilities. So, existing welfare measures does require systematic reforms. Housing efforts is essential for meaningful international social inclusion. Then we call for action, like say policy makers, NGOs, and local governments need to collaborate better for impact innovations. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
Then in fact, you have done both any like very question of the study, but most of the findings are very general. Yes. So be specific on that. And many other study also general observation. Very specific. Give the timeline, data sources, and all this. Because otherwise, we'll be at loss. And you will not get proper feedback. And maybe some review also of policies and all this. At national level or at around you. You have to examine those policies and some best practices also you can put. So those are my observations. So anything else? Otherwise, I have some questions generally. Okay. And, all the presenters, I should congratulate you. Very good, good area. Uh, I think platform like this, we all learn from each other. We maybe severe in terms of age, we are also learning a lot from you and vice versa. So this platform, don't think this is the final. You keep circulating the paper to other, you develop network in this group. If you are working with the media, you develop the network. That is how functions benefit. You come here to share your idea, get feedback, develop network. So all those things functions to make. And maybe as projects, it will have good idea how to publish it, all these things on it. Many of these papers, they may not be in the proper structure. Okay, we have seen the PPT on paper. So paper should be in a structure, there are different format. Think those things and final paper you can see. Okay. And once again, I congratulate you. Thank you, session.
Do we have any general questions from the audience to any of the participants present? So now we'll move on to the vote of thanks. I invite Anand Sunil, who is a research intern at the CMPIG for the vote of thanks.
Yeah, that's vote of thanks, and my duty to deliver the vote of thanks. And it's uh, it's a vote of thanks to this session in general and to the whole presentations which we had this today in particular. And followed by this weekend, we will have a validity session, and it will be also followed by vote of thanks. And it will with immense gratitude, I'm here to deliver my vote of thanks to all the participants and the chair, Professor Sadananda Sahu, who actively coordinated the decision and shared his valuable insights. I also congratulate the efforts taken by all the presenters to deliver uh, their presentations with the most enthusiasm, and also we thank for the cooperation and participation of all the dignitaries, students, and my colleagues who are here in this hall, who made this session more insightful with the investors. And I request your cooperation and participation in our subsequent ventures. Thank you.